You are watching the New American Media. Live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, the United States of America. Los Angeles, California, if you would like to be more specific than that. Hello, happy Friday, September 28th, 2012. Thanks for joining us. My name is Brian Engelman. This is the Unhappy Hour, live Cleveland-centric, LA-based sports show, the only one that we're currently aware of, and we are doing a segment called Strictly Browns. This is usually where we try to keep it strictly to the Cleveland Browns. I want to mention that if you're not following us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button with youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. Go to Twitter and follow us at American_media_ and like our Facebook page, The New American Media. We are joined, as usual, with Brandon Odell, the co-host of this program. Brandon, how you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Just another depressing day after a Browns loss.
How many of those have we had in our lifetime?
Well, let's see. Since 1999, you figure this is, the 13th season, 13 times 10, 130, probably, we've probably had somewhere in the realm of, probably closing in on, I'd say about 160 of these since 1999.
160 punches to the gut. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Why do we do this, Brandon? What are we up to? Why? Why don't we just throw in the towel?
Well, I'll say that I was at work. My buddy in the classroom next door to mine is a big Lions fan. He's a big fan of all of the Detroit teams. To his credit, he's not just say, hey, I root for one team because I'm a fair weather fan or whatever because they're doing good these days. He likes all of his teams. He said something because I talked to him just about how depressing it is, and I said, as a Lions fan, you're good here last year, but right now your team is 1-2. They lose on Sunday, they're 1-3, and then it's back to self-doubt for everybody. So he made the point. He said, you stick with your team because then you say that it's going to be that much more rewarding when they do win, and I guess that's what Browns fans always, go back to in their minds, I guess.
Well, in a way, Brandon, your family has earned. You've gone out of your way and made sure that you guys are part of the season ticket crew, so you have access to all of the Cleveland Browns home games. That's something that in a lot of cities it's just kind of difficult to get into. Obviously, during the more exciting years, it's harder to get into a Indians game or a Cavs game or a Browns game for that matter. But, I mean, the Browns, they haven't been good, like you said, for 12 years. Maybe 11 of those 12 years haven't really been all that competitive, maybe once or twice. Talk about your experience going to the game with the Bills. I know the weather looked miserable. It looked how I felt watching the game. I looked at the fans and I said, man, that's how I feel over here in California watching this. I kind of depressing. What was your experience like out the stadium?
Overall, the weather really wasn't too bad. I mean, it wasn't. I think if it was about 15 degrees cooler, that might have been a much different story in terms of how much that weather affected everybody. But overall, it was raining for the first half of the game, but it wasn't downpour torrential enough to where you were completely miserable and out of your element, and kind of could just duck in behind the underneath the rafters for a little while. But the play on the field definitely, whereas I was really hoping for something pretty promising. You had the feeling maybe at the end of the first half after Richardson scored his touchdown there that maybe there was going to be a chance for them to get back in it. But the Bills, much like what the Ravens did last night, came out of after halftime and put a drive together and made a statement that they weren't going to really let the Browns get back into it in any way. And really, the Browns Bills game was the Browns were out of that one more than they were ever really out of this Ravens game yesterday.
Yeah, and they had an interception. Sometimes the defense, it's feast or famine. It's really killing us, that secondary, and we'll talk about it in a second about how Joe Hayden's loss is affecting the overall defense, because they're still getting some pressure on the quarterback, but that secondary, I mean, they're just getting lit up right now. But basically, to sum up the Bills game, it feels like an eternity ago, but I want to tag it and bag it and move on because we got to finish up tagging and bagging the Ravens game as we look forward. But overall, what was your impression with the team? How did Whedon look? How was the flow of things? Did just what did you notice being at the stadium about this Browns team? Do they look fast? Do they look sloppy? Are you seeing things that are good? Are you seeing what's your overall impression after that?
Overall, I guess with as far as the offense goes, it's inconsistency. One thing that it has been a big hot topic in Cleveland is Greg Little's showboating. And that was definitely something that I noticed and really felt a bit of disdain for. I mean, Greg Little is up there, doing his Usain Bolt, bow and arrow type of routine after getting a first down when, the team was down by 14 points. It's like, get up, be angry, be aggressive. But don't act like it's time to do an end zone dance when your team is getting whooped on.
And he had a touchdown slip through his hands yesterday. Tough ball, but you got to make those plays. That's why you're in the NFL. If you can't make that, you got to put someone else in there because that's just the job. I know it's hard to do, but you got to make those catches. And Greg Little has been very inconsistent. The Browns left a lot of dropped passes on the field yesterday with Brandon Whedon. Well, it's unfortunate that that's the thing that you recall when we bring up the Bills game. But let's move on to the game yesterday. Let's just kind of recap what happened against the Ravens, because a whole lot of nothing in the first quarter. Richardson got his touchdown. It felt like things were starting to get together. Whedon, who looked miserable for the first quarter, maybe 2 quarters, it really started slinging it. A lot of the receivers were letting him down in a big way. And then I would have to say that was a very good play by that defensive back on that interception. It didn't take too long. It wasn't a horrible throw. It was a very good defensive play, and that just shifted it, and we just couldn't dig out of that hole, even though the Hail Mary tried. What are your thoughts on it?
The early offense is what has really been so disappointing so far this year. Whedon has shown the ability to move the ball better than Colt McCoy. So let's just say that and get that out of the way. Whedon moves the ball and moves the team overall better than Colt McCoy. Now, with that said, where is the first quarter offense? Because now we've gone 4 games, once again, very similarly to last year and similarly to years before that, where we are scoring 0 first quarter touchdowns. We've not scored a first quarter touchdown yet this year.
Yeah.
How many games was it last year where we didn't score a first quarter touchdown? I think there were probably about 13 of the 16 games, if not more than that. If not 15 of the 16. I think we finally scored one the last few weeks of the season or something like that. But besides that, it's just this is we've seen it all before type of thing. Early offense, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Well, actually, no, I take that back. We had a 6 and out because we got 1 first down on our first drive. And so what teams are going to do is they're going to defer every time, knowing that the Browns start off so slowly. They're going to defer every time they win the coin toss and get the ball first in the second half. And basically, it's like you get a free possession out of things because they know that they can stop the Browns early and get the ball back in the first quarter. So, with that said, there are some good things. Whedon can throw some good passes, but I think what they definitely need is that veteran presence in the in the wide receiver core to be able to really show some of those younger players how to get things done. Having a player like an Anquan Bolden, imagine how good Anquan Bolden would look in a Browns uniform as your, I guess, replacement for a Greg Little type of player. And or as a replacement for Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon is getting minutes right now that he's probably not really ready for. And I'm not necessarily saying that's through any fault of his own. He's just a very, very raw player right now, who certainly is not going to be on the practice squad because of the fact that the Browns spent a second-round pick on him. And if you try to put a guy on a practice squad, that means that you have to open him up to the waiver wire, and someone else would snatch him up in a second. So you have to keep him on your active roster, or at least on your 53-man roster. You don't have to have him on the game day 44-man or whatever it is, but you need to have him on your 53-man roster, and then you need to make sure that he's getting the work that he needs in practice. But he's certainly not quite ready to be that number one, number two type of receiver that we're hoping he can eventually be. So, we need that presence to really be able to get things done. You thought that maybe Muhammad Massaquoi was starting to turn the corner.
He was.
But here we go again. He's injured, and it's like a hamstring injury. Could be 3 weeks before we end up seeing Massaquoi back, and then there's just another season of inconsistency out of him. So, just disappointment. Defense playing well enough not to get shelled. But the defense, sure, they did a pretty good job of holding the Baltimore Ravens to, only 16 points on offense, because certainly they had the pick six. So 16 points on offense is great, but at the same time, too, that's altogether more points than what we scored, and they were not able to stop Joe Flacco on some critical third downs. So, a lot of questions on both sides of the ball. Special teams, they let us down against Cincinnati a couple weeks ago. They really were probably the highlight of this game. Phil Dawson with those 350-yard field goals just really has furthered his claim as being a very overlooked Pro Bowl quality kicker who's never played for a team that gives him the opportunity to have a spotlight.
Well, that is a good point that you bring up, because Phil Dawson, they had two kickers from Texas on the field last night. I heard him talking about it. And what is it, 13 years Dawson has been in the league, something like that? And absolutely, this guy has just been phenomenal throughout his career, and we're very fortunate to have him. I'd rather see him kicking extra points than field goals, 50-yard field goals at that. But, knowing that you have a long distance where if you can just crack into that perimeter, you have 3 points. I don't know. Do you think having a luxury like a pretty solid, consistent, long-legged kicker might make the offensive coordinators in this town a little too cautious, not going for a touchdown and just saying, well, we don't want to risk it. Well, we have at least 3. Let's not cause a turnover. Do you think there's anything to that?
No, I don't think there's anything to that at all. Honestly, I think that, Phil Dawson kept us in the game. We would have not been in that game yesterday at all if it weren't for Phil Dawson. I think that you try to execute the game plan as best you can, and, when you officially get stopped and you can't, and you're not going any further, then at that point, that's when, if you can, you call on your kicker. And, the Browns stalled right at the very edge of his range, and so you call in Phil Dawson a few times. So, I don't think it makes the I don't think it makes the offensive coordinator any more cautious. I think it just further gives you a little bit more of a chance to stay in the game.
Now, what do you make of the Josh Cribbs injury, concussion? What do you think about having Travis Benjamin back there, and what is the loss of Cribbs? Like, what have you seen out of Cribbs so far this year? Now that he's been focused more on special teams, how long do you think he's going to be out? And what did you think of the new guy back there?
Not too much to say. Concussions can be tricky things. Who knows how long he'll be out? And then as far as Benjamin goes, he had that 40-yard punt return, and so good for him, I guess. Maybe he can fill in pretty well in Cribbs' absence. So
now we have
it's another disappointing day for Browns fans. Another game that they looked just solid enough to be able to stay in the game, but can't get over the top. This is 3 years in a row we've lost to the Ravens in Baltimore by 7 points or less. So this is definitely the Browns have shown for years their ability to stay in the game with their AFC North foes. And people say, oh well, no one wants to play the Browns. They leave broken and battered, whether they get the win or not. But the fact of the matter is the Browns aren't winning any of these games, and and until they start doing that, they're a joke, and that's all there is to it. And people lick their chops when they get to play Cleveland, because you know what? Yeah, they might leave broken and battered, but they know that they're going to get a W. And I guarantee you that every single player on that Baltimore Ravens team knew that they were going to go in and win that game against the Browns last night.
Well, before we get to the Giants game, what do you think about the Joe Hayden loss overall? Because, like you say, teams show up expecting to get the wins. You have a few really solid players. Joe Hayden on defense. You got Trent Richardson on offense. Joe Thomas, guys that kind of do have a dominating type of mindset. How big of a loss has that been for the Browns over the past few games? And do you think they're going to be able to snap back? Because they really are getting picked apart in the secondary right now.
I said it. I think a couple of weeks ago. It could have been a high ankle sprain or something that put Joe Hayden down for 4 weeks. And the fact of the matter is this is the NFL. This is a big boys league, and one guy goes down, and the next guy needs to step up and be ready to play. And unfortunately, those next guys haven't been able to do that. So, what else can you say besides? They only have one more game to go without him.
Well, talk about that game coming up against the Giants. Do you see anything you like in those matchups? Do you think we stand any chance? Because I personally believe, I know I'm the eternal optimist when it comes to the Browns. We go over this all the time. But I really see a team that is starting slow and they're getting better. Whedon looked horrible, and then he showed flashes of, yeah, I'm okay, and then he shows flashes of making dumb mistakes, whatever. I think that this team is someone you would rather play in week 1 than week 4, rather week 4 than week 8, and I think we're going to start competing and knocking a few of these wins off here. What are your thoughts in the next few weeks?
Matter is that
I think we're losing you, Brandon. Do you still have a connection with us? Hang on. Let me try that one more time.
Hello.
All right, yeah, we lost your connection. You were talking about what chance you think the Browns have the next few weeks with the Giants, and then do you think the team is going to start improving as they start slow in the games? Do you think they started slow in the season and they're going to start finding a groove here?
The Giants are the defending Super Bowl champions, so it certainly is going to be a tall order. The Giants still have one more game to play between now and the time they see the Browns, so, a lot could change. There could be injuries. Hakeem Nicks has been a little bit banged up, but is expected to play this weekend. There's a lot of, things that are moving parts, literally, that could still change between now and 9 days from now. So it's hard to say 100% for sure what we're going to see, but that we're going to see a defense that blitzes the living crap out of you, and they're able to do it really with their front four, and they have parts that they can kind of move in and out as far as you have some of those guys like O.C. Umenora, you've got Jason Pierre-Paul. You've got some real studs there in the defensive end spots that can really create a lot of havoc on those quarterbacks and on those offensive linemen. So, that's something that's definitely very worrisome to me, because they're able to basically drop back, 7 players and blitz 4, and that's going to really create. If our receivers were having a hard time getting open before, it's not going to change much when we're going up against the New York Giants. It's going to be a very similar situation probably to what we saw with with the Ravens. The only difference is that the Ravens probably create more pressure on the inside with players like Haloti Ngata than on the outside. So, I mean, they have good wide receivers. They have a solid running game. And it all starts with Eli Manning, who, when he's on, is every bit the quarterback that his brother was in his prime. The only problem maybe is the fact that Eli might just be a little bit more, well, not even a little bit. He's more inconsistent than Peyton ever was.
Well,
Hello?
Yeah, you asked me a question a little bit ago before we got going. Do you think it's time to throw in the towel at 0-4? We know the Giants game is going to be difficult, but at 0-4, do you feel it's time to throw in the towel, or what do you think?
Well, playoffs are gone, and I never really had any real expectation for playoffs anyway. My hope was a 7-9 season. I would have been very happy with that. I think that is probably unattainable at this point. I think about as far as we would be able to get is 5 wins, and that's being very optimistic still at this point. That means that you are going 5-7 over the last 12 games, which is almost a 500 record. So, right. We've let a couple of games slip away that we very possibly could have had. That Eagles game first and foremost, because when you have one side of the ball that is playing as well as it did play, with the defense putting together, a performance for the ages against Philadelphia, and we're not able to capitalize on that. Then when the defense comes back down to earth like it has the last few weeks, it's just that much harder to make up for it. When your offense does start being able to perform a little bit. So, right now I'm thinking realistically, if we win 3 games at this point in the season, we will be lucky.
Okay, lucky with 3 games. Well, we'll see how it plays out. I think that this team is going to gel and find a rhythm, and I think we're going to start picking off these wins. What's your prediction score-wise? What do you think? I know it's about a week and a half away, but Giants, Super Bowl champion.
Once again, really hard to make a true prediction just because, there's a whole game that still needs to be played for the Giants. You don't know about injuries and everything else, but, if everything is the same as it is for this week, and, I guess you look if Muhammad Massaquoi is back, is Josh Cribbs going to be out again? All those things play into it. But it would be very hard sledding to think that they were going to go to Giants, to the Giants stadium. What is it called? It used to be the Meadowlands. I don't know what it's called anymore. But to be able to go there on the road and beat the Super Bowl champions. The ironic thing is that we did it in 2008. And beat the Giants on that Monday nighter. So it's not to say that it couldn't not. It's not impossible, but very highly unlikely. I'm going to say probably we're looking at if the pattern that we have seen holds true, we're probably looking at the defense giving up more than what they gave up against Baltimore. And overall, you probably have to consider, although Flacco is definitely getting close to that elite quarterback status, he's not quite in the same category as Eli Manning, if for no other reason than the fact he has not won any Super Bowls. You're probably looking at, I'd say probably about a 27-17 loss.
Well, that's the opposite of where I was going. I was going to go 27-20 Browns. Because over the past few years, I've noticed one thing. We somehow find a way to lose a lot of games that we could have won, and we usually have a surprise or two where we knock off the Saints, or we have really impressive wins that come out of left field, and we saw it from the Vikings last week. Brandon, we only have a second left. Let's go into overtime. Manny Acta fired. Sandy Alomar Jr. in. Any thoughts?
It's kind of puzzling to me that they would make this move now with just a week left in the season. If it was something that they were doing, 2 months ago, when the Indians first really started to hit this slide, I think it would have made a lot more sense. But it just reeks of a desperate move by a desperate franchise. I don't see any real reason why you couldn't have waited another week and a half, unless they were really that concerned that Sandy Alomar was going to be getting some interviews that were going to be taking place between now and then.
Well, and I've always thought having someone like Sandy Alomar and someone like Omar Vizquel in the organization once they left, Sandy was always pretty good at understanding the game, and so was Omar. So I don't know. We'll follow this story as it develops. See if they.
Yeah, this is the last thing that I'll say about that is it doesn't matter who the manager is. When you're trotting out a lineup that has 5 starters that played significant time in the minor leagues, like just weeks before that, you have no chance to be any type of a contender. And some of these players that they were trotting out as starters at the beginning of the year, your Jack Hanahan and stuff like that. I mean, I know Lonnie Chisenhall got hurt, and he was supposed to be the guy that was in there. But some of these guys, they can give you a few moments, but they're not consistent major league players. They're just not. And the Indians don't have enough of that talent. They have a young nucleus of some solid players, but even those players haven't really shown the ability to really stay consistently productive. So until we get the chance to see that, the Indians are going to be down there, scraping the bottom of the barrel with the Kansas City Royals.
And is there any truth to the rumor that you will be buying the franchise?
Chances are the Dolans are probably going to want a little bit more money than what I have to offer, but if I did have the money, I'd like to think that I could do a better job than they could.
And that's the feeling I have. I'm really looking forward to the day that they can sell to an owner that will put the money into it, because the stadium always sold out when they had a good product on the field. It's a team that can get support, it can compete, mid-level market, small market, whatever, but when the ownership, like you said, is putting out a whole bunch of players that really aren't major league players, you got to wonder why they're not purchasing the contracts and trading for assets that can compete at a major league level. So we'll see how it goes. We'll follow that story as we get moving, and before you know it, Brandon, we're going to be talking basketball again. So I'll tell you what, that's all we got time for today, so I hope you have a good weekend, good sir. Oh, last question, Buckeyes, what do you think against Michigan State?
We'll say it's in Michigan State. That's going to be a tall order. Michigan State, I think, overall is probably the superior team. I'm going to say 20-14 Michigan State.
Huh, all right. And then I'll go 28-21 Buckeyes. We'll see what happens. Brandon, until next time, sir, you have a good weekend.
You too. Go Browns.
Go Browns. Yep, it's another depressing. I guess this time it's a Friday. A depressing Friday as a Browns fan. Usually this feeling occurs Sunday evening, Monday morning. But since we played on Thursday, we're getting this on Friday. Yeah, maybe it's good. Get it out of our system. Get it over early. And we're over for today's show. I want to thank you guys for listening. My name is Brian Engelman. I want to thank our guest, Brandon Odell. Always comes in for our Strictly Browns segment on the Unhappy Hour Sports Show here at TNAM Radio at thenewamericanmedia.com. I want to stay connected with you guys, so if you could like our page on Facebook, The New American Media, we'd appreciate that. If you would also like to go ahead and follow us on Twitter, we stay connected with about 15,000 people. Instant communication about all sorts of issues, not just sports related. We're at American_media_. So please take a look at that and follow our page. Leave us some comments. Be sure to click subscribe if you're listening to this after the fact on YouTube. YouTube.com/TheNewAmericanMedia. I'll probably be back on Eccentric Perspective with Blake Wally next Monday, as usual, on FreedomizerRadio.com. Please join us over there. And then Agree to Disagree coming up. Today's topic? Oh, I don't know. How about some cyber attacks on all of the major banks? Possible act of terrorism? What if you couldn't access your money? We'll talk about it on Agree to Disagree. Thank you very much for your time. You are watching The New American Media.